Welcome everybody to the Soul YouTube video channel. My name is Jean Denny. I am the founding director of the School of Unusual Life Learning. And we're in the middle of a audio blog series on relationships. At Soul, we consider how life moves and how people change, including how relationships change and grow. And so because I happen to have a friend here in Racine that is both a matchmaker and a dating coach, I thought that it would be fun to invite her in about now to talk a little bit about her experiences in that role. Actually, Lori does a lot of things, including pet therapy and business coaching, but so she works with people all the time and is a great resource. We have been working in this audio blog series on how relationships grow and actually get rooted and how people connect to each other in somewhat predictable ways. And so I thought it would be great to check that out with Lori and see what she has to say. So Lori, welcome. Lori Mendelson. Hi.
Hello, Jean. It's so nice to be here with you. Thank you today.
Yeah, great to have you.
Excited
it's
about
actually the first time I've ever tried to do an interview, so it'll be interesting, and we'll keep our sense of humor. But I'm just so fascinated with what you do and the insights you probably get on how relationships form. And I want to just do a proviso here that the audio blog series I'm doing is not specifically about dating relationships or mating relationships, although in our culture, that's usually what we now think that is about, but I'm not specifically talking about that. But it's such a difficult thing for people, I think, in our time, or a charged thing, and we learn so much about human nature by that process. So I want to welcome in your wisdom.
Thank you, Jean.
Yeah, great. So I don't know where to start, but maybe we could just start with you telling me some of the biggest mistakes you see people making in early parts of relationships, or really anything else you want to share.
Yeah, Jean, and you have spoken to this before. I think the biggest mistakes that people make is they automatically glom onto another person, and they don't look at the person in a length of time. They have already decided in the first date, second date, third date that this is their person without getting to know them fully.
Yeah.
And I'm of the belief that it takes at least a year to even scratch the surface. And it's important to see people in all sorts of situations. For example, now is a great time, a pandemic. How are they handling it? How do they handle challenges? How do they handle if you have a disagreement or a fight?
Yeah.
How do they respect you or disrespect you in that arena? Are they open to learning, and are they open to growing? Are they open to working with you as a couple, as a collaboration, to break down barriers and walls? Are they able to give 100% of themselves into the relationship? And this takes time, and it takes a lot longer than 3 dates to even get.
Oh boy, isn't that the truth? And I, as a therapist, I would confirm exactly what you're saying. And of course, that's what we've been talking about on the blog series, that there are processes and tests that we have for each other that are really important to the development of the relationship itself, as I like to say, as an organism itself, like almost as if we're growing a child. But I'm picking up on one thing you just said, more than, I mean, everything you said, I think is really true, but I'm really picking up on how you say didn't you just say you have to watch people for a while?
Yeah, you have to observe it. And we get so excited about being with someone and meeting someone who we feel that we click with and that we have a sexual chemistry with. But it's also important to step back, even while you're on a date, or when you're not on a date with that person, or you've just had a date with that person, and check in with your heart space and see how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Does that person make you feel safe? Do you feel that you can trust this person with your heart, that you can go to the next step of opening up and sharing, and also giving of yourself?
Mm.
Especially for women who have been through heartache, and this also includes men too. I mean, this isn't a gender related issue that only women get hurt. I mean, men equally get hurt, and sometimes are even more devastated than women, because men generally don't have the support system of a large tribe to support them and talk it through with them. And they're shamed if they bring it up to friends, or they're shamed if they discuss it with family, because sadly men have been so conditioned to believe that, you're a man, buck it up, if you have emotions, that's wrong. So it just is, one needs to check in with your heart and your head and lead in that alignment of both together. And that takes time.
Yeah.
Although, Jean, both you and I know that there are some things right off the bat that are just non-starters. And that's an important thing to recognize and realize that.
Okay, I'd like to stop you there. I mean, gosh, there's so much that you're saying. But what do you think are right off the bat non-starters? Does it vary from person to person, or what are there characteristics of what it is that will shut down something right at the beginning?
That's a great question. I think that there are things that are right off the bat that are, diabolically wrong. For example, what we have seen in the last 4 years, without getting into a grandiose discussion about that, is political views. I think especially now, worldviews are very important right now. And also, if someone has done the work on himself or herself, so many people I see are afraid of being alone, and they just want to get into a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
To fill themselves up.
Well, people want what they want, and we are in a consumer-oriented shopping environment all the time. Like, I would really like somebody to be next to me, so let me see if I can find the candidate that will do that.
Right.
And if I think you're going to be that, then instantly I'm making you that, and suddenly we're in a relationship when a whole lot of early steps have just been jumped over that are really essential to actually getting what we want. That's the tragedy I see. Anyway, go ahead. You go.
And Jean, and especially, you and I are close in age, and especially in people over 50, there is a fear that permeates around many singles over 50 that time is running out. And I better find someone pretty quickly, or else I may never find someone at all. And, we need to look at that as, what is so wrong with being alone and being happy and having a fulfilled life? There's nothing wrong with that. I see having a romantic partner, a love partner, as icing on the cake. And a lot of people don't see it that way. They see it as, I am void, and therefore I need to fill my bucket with you so I can be complete. And it's just, it's an atrocity, if you ask me. So
yeah. So do you think, well, I have to ask you this. Do you think that the fact that most people, I would be willing to bet that most people now are trying to meet people in online environments rather than in, I would call the natural landscape of a community. Do you think that has an impact on this process?
Yes, I do.
So to describe a little bit about what you think changes when people meet online versus in a community setting.
Well, I'm gonna use the analogy of that you're looking for a car. People are advertising to find a partner. People advertise to sell goods and services and vehicles. So there's an expectation that you're going to be met exactly where you are.
Exactly.
On online dating, that, okay, I know what I'm looking for. Are you looking for that? It's exactly like you said.
As if we could just create it if we're looking for the same thing.
Right, exactly. These are the qualities I'm looking for, and you seem to hit them without knowing that person. And thank God people are getting vaccinated and the world is opening up again, and we can be out in public again. And I personally think organically, or through a friend, or through a matchmaker who is trusted and knowledgeable, is a great way to meet someone. And I think online dating is something in your toolbox. You have your friends, you have your interests and your passions that you do outdoors or in community, and then you have online dating. It's just another tool in your package to meet someone.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because what I'm experiencing more and more is that people don't have your friends and your interests and your community. Those are often missing pieces or weak pieces in people's lives. Now we've had the pandemic, which would have wiped out many of those activities. And so, what I also experience is that we expect so much of this one thing, which is called a romantic relationship, and we want it to fill all the relationship needs of all these natural interactions that we would normally have. So as communities have weakened in some ways,
Yeah.
it's been, I think it's harder to actually uh, create a fulfilling connection. And I'll just say another thing here. I really want to hear what you have to say, but you're bringing up points I'd like to connect with what we've been talking about and so.
Yeah.
And one of them is this idea of context, that I actually don't think relationships thrive very well without a shared context. And um, one of the things about meeting somebody in a context, rather, and Match.com isn't much of a context. It's more of a randomized program. And when you meet somebody, say, oh, let's just take a church or an organization or work, or you have the opportunity to watch somebody for a while.
Yeah.
Watch how they move, watch how they behave with other indifferent. And there's something about that information of watching how people move and treat people and laugh, and not when they're sitting across a table with you on a date, which is really a high intimacy situation to be in as a starting point, you know? And there's something, because you said that a couple times, you have to watch people. I think that too, you know, context and distance at the beginning are actually quite important. And I sometimes think we aren't able to cultivate relationships that otherwise we'd be able to cultivate in the right context.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Jean, you know, the thing about it is, for me, people have, I'll say me, when I go on a date, I have zero expectation. And the reason that I do this is because if I'm disappointed, there's nowhere to go. I'm down already. but if it turns out to be a great date, it's an unexpected surprise and treat. But so many people go into it feeling, okay, she's going to be the one, he's going to be the one, and we make people what they are not. And I love what you said about watching and also listening. And when you're in an environment where you can organically get to know someone, you can also reach out to your community. Hey, tell me about Susie. What's her jam? What's her gig? What's her
Yeah. Well, that's where you come in as a matchmaker. Let's talk about that a little bit, because that's fascinating. And because in a way, when you're matchmaking, you are the context for people. You're seeing people, you're watching people. Talk a little bit about what that's like for you.
Yeah. So what happens is I meet people who want to find love. And the first step in it really is I do a coaching series of 8 sessions with them, so we can get through their past blocks and barriers. And so they love themselves first, because until you're in a place of self-love, and I hate using that word because, you know, it sounds like, okay, if I take a bubble bath, I'm going to have self-love. That isn't what I mean. But what we need to get to is really the bottom line of why things have or have not worked before, and then start building back up. And then they're ready to date.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Thank you. And then what I do is then I start going out into the world and connecting them with people who my gut, my instinctive quality has that they're going to be right for each other. And Jean, you know, I'll share one of my real success stories. It was a random meeting of a woman. One of my very first clients was asking for a woman who was smart and savvy and driven and beautiful, and he really wanted a redhead. I asked him, you know, what does she look like? And he said, she looks like Ginger from Gilligan's Island. And I ran into a woman who looked like Ginger, and I walked up to her and I introduced myself and I said, I'd like to have coffee with you to get to know you. I'm a matchmaker and I have a client. I just have this gut feeling that you two will hit it off. Long story short, they're engaged. They'll be getting married this year. And
wow.
It worked.
So you're kind of a channel.
It was, yes, I'm the conduit to these two people finding each other. but it is a process, and many people are very dismissive of people right away. And again, getting back to taking the length of time to get to know someone before dismissing or before deciding is excruciatingly important.
I think it's so hard for human beings. Well, what is hard in my, yeah, what's hard in my view about this in the dating sector is that I think personally, this is one of my mantras, we
Yeah.
have to discover why we're meeting somebody.
Yeah.
It's actually a sacred thing. Like, and when somebody comes in with the agenda to find a partner and you're interviewing people to see if they'll be that partner, you actually kind of violate the very kind of sacred unknown of who is this person? Who are they? By trying to make it something, it actually kind of does something to the relationship itself that I've always found really difficult when people have an agenda for me of any kind, let's say back when I remember people wanting to date me, just that agenda itself
Yeah.
was a template that became problematic. So I sort of feel like people, of course, want a partner and all of that. And it's so human. And yet I think coming out of that just a little bit to be interested in people generally. And I just love what you said about starting with people where they are in themselves. We've been talking about that on the blog about this primary relationship with God, nature, cosmos, earth, that we actually can't form a healthy relationship without. So I love the confirmation that you're giving me here on everything we're doing. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Any advice you'd like to give people, or tell me the number one dating advice you give people? I hear slowing down and taking your time is one of them. If there's anything else you'd like to add, and then feel free to tell people about, how they can get in touch with you if they
Yes.
called to do
So
that.
thank you, Jean. So the number one thing that I always say to people is, when I work with people or friends or loved ones, I'll say, I'd like for you to make a list, and I'd like for you to look at this list and keep revising this list. And I ask people to write it on pink paper with a red pen, which is the universal color of vibration for the universe, to help manifest and attract this person. And I hope none of your listeners will be going, ooh, there people go again. Ooh, there. But it does work. It does work. I'm an example that it's worked. But I then, once they've made the list, I ask them, how are you on this list? How do you mirror back this list? In what you are asking for, what are you offering? Because you may be looking for 1 through 12. And if you have 2 of these qualities, and I'm not saying that a woman who is looking for a lumberjack, that a woman has to be a lumberjack as well. What I'm saying is, how do you meet this person where they are? Yeah. And what do you offer as well to that person?
Yeah.
So, and that comes back to doing the work of getting past your fears and your blocks and barriers and coming to self-love.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing. Then the number 2 thing is, just don't be so serious about this. If it's going to work out, there's going to be a flow and it will happen, and you can't push it. And number 3, enjoy yourself and have fun, because on a date, this should not be drudgery. This should not be, oh my God, this is the last person on earth. Just enjoy the flow, be present. Check in with your heart, with your mind, and see how you feel.
Yeah, presence is really big. We're really talking about that. Well, Lori, thank you so much. I think we'll probably bring it to a close here, just because why not? I know you have other things to do today, and I would love to talk with you more about this. But you've given a lovely offering here to everything we're doing.
Thank you.
How would people get in touch with you if they were interested in what you do?
Yeah, thank you, Jean. So my website is smartfunnysingle.com. And I have email, which is Lori@smartfunnysingle.com. So if you're interested in dating coaching, in matchmaking, or right now I am offering a special. You buy one, get one free. No. It is, I'm writing dating app profiles. So what I'm doing is rewriting your profile and helping you select the right pictures so you can really stand out in a very crowded space of online daters. So
Okay, wow, you're
yeah.
really in there. Well, I want to thank you. I really want to thank you so much. And if any of you are interested in the relationship blog series that are listening to this and not listening to that, if any of you are interested in the School of Unusual Life Learning, you can find the rest of the blogs on Soul YouTube video channel. And you can check out my website, jeanedenney.com. That's JeanneDenney. And there you will see an icon called The School. We hope to see some of you again. Thanks so much.